Alex lay tangled in his sheets, a feverish mess. Each breath felt heavy, like trying to suck air through a wet sponge. His head throbbed with a dull, insistent beat, and his muscles ached as if he'd run a marathon he couldn't remember. The room spun gently when he tried to focus, the familiar posters on his wall blurring into soft, indistinct shapes. He knew he needed water, maybe some medicine, but even the thought of sitting up sent a wave of dizziness crashing over him. His throat felt scratchy and dry, a desert in his mouth. He groaned, a weak, reedy sound that barely escaped his lips. The phone, just an arm's length away on his nightstand, seemed miles out of reach. He had a vague memory of trying to call Ben earlier, his fingers fumbling with the screen, but he wasn't sure if the call had gone through, or if he'd even managed to say anything sensible. Everything felt hazy, like a dream that kept slipping away just as he tried to grasp it. A shiver ran through him, despite the oppressive heat radiating from his own body. He pulled the blanket tighter, but it offered no comfort, only more weight. His eyes, heavy and bloodshot, scanned the room. Dust motes danced in the sliver of sunlight, peeking through a gap in his curtains, oblivious to his misery. He felt utterly alone, lost in a fog of sickness. He hadn't been this ill in years, not since he was a kid, when his mom would bring him chicken soup and read him stories. Now, there was just the silence of his apartment, broken only by his own labored breathing. A wave of nausea rolled over him, making him clench his jaw. He closed his eyes, wishing for the world to just stop spinning for a moment. He vaguely remembered a doctor telling him to rest and drink fluids. Rest was easy. Moving felt impossible. Drinking fluids, however, seemed like a monumental task. His limbs felt like lead, too heavy to lift. His eyelids were heavy too, constantly threatening to fall shut and drag him back into the restless, feverish sleep that offered no real rest. Every muscle in his body protested, a symphony of aches and pains. Even his hair felt heavy against his scalp. He tried to swallow, but his throat was too dry. A cough rattled in his chest, deep and painful, leaving him breathless and gasping. Tears pricked at the corners of his eyes, not from sadness, but from the sheer discomfort. He just wanted it to stop. He wanted to feel normal again, to be able to get out of bed, to walk to the kitchen, to make himself a cup of tea. But those simple actions now seemed like impossible feats belonging to a healthy person he barely recognized. He was trapped in his own body, a prisoner of the flu, weak and utterly helpless. The world outside his window felt distant and irrelevant. His entire universe shrunk to the confines of his aching bed. He closed his eyes again, drifting in and out of a restless slumber, wishing for relief that felt a lifetime away. A faint, insistent knocking pulled Alex from the swamp of his feverish dreams. It was soft at first, then grew a little louder, but still gentle. He tried to call out, to say come in, but only a raspy whisper escaped his lips. The knocking stopped, and then he heard a key rattle in the lock, a sound that usually meant Ben. A wave of relief, so strong it almost brought tears to his eyes, washed over him. The door creaked open, and a tall, familiar shadow filled the doorway. "Alex, it's Ben. Your door was unlocked. Are you okay?" Ben's voice was a comforting rumble, full of concern. He stepped inside, his eyes quickly finding Alex's huddled form in the bed. Alex tried to nod, but his head felt too heavy. Ben walked quickly to the bed, his face etched with worry. He placed a hand on Alex's forehead, his touch cool and gentle. "Wow, you're burning up, man," he murmured, his brow furrowed. "I knew something was wrong when you sounded so out of it on the phone, then didn't answer my texts. You look terrible." Alex managed a weak, "I feel terrible." "I can see that," Ben said, his voice softening even more. He looked around the messy room, then back at Alex. "Okay, don't you worry about a thing. I'm not leaving you like this." He pulled up a chair beside the bed and sat down, a determined look on his face. "Have you had anything to drink? Any medicine?" Alex shook his head slowly. "Can't move." Ben sighed, a soft, worried sound. "All right, that's it. I'm staying. You need someone here. I'll get you sorted out." He stood up. already moving with purpose. First things first, water, and then we'll find some fever reducer. Alex watched him go, a strange mix of embarrassment and profound gratitude bubbling inside him. He hated being seen like this, so weak and vulnerable. But having been here, his calm presence filling the room, felt like a lifeline. He knew Ben was a good friend, but this level of care, the immediate insistence on staying, touched something deep inside him. It wasn't just a quick check-in. Ben was digging in for the long haul. He heard Ben rummaging in the kitchen, then the clink of glass. Soon, Ben was back, carrying a tall glass of water with ice and a small plastic cup with 2 pills. "Here, try to sit up a little," Ben instructed gently, helping Alex prop himself up against the pillows. Alex felt Ben's strong arm supporting his back, a solid anchor in his swirling world. "Slow sips," Ben advised, holding the glass to Alex's lips. The cool water felt like heaven, soothing his parched throat. He managed to swallow the pills with a few sips, feeling a tiny spark of hope that they might actually help. "Thanks, Ben," Alex whispered, feeling exhaustion creep back in. Ben just smiled, a small, reassuring smile. "Don't mention it. That's what friends are for, right? Now you just rest. I'm right here." He settled back into the chair, his gaze fixed on Alex, a silent promise in his eyes that he wasn't going anywhere. Alex closed his eyes, a sense of peace finally settling over him, knowing he wasn't alone anymore. With the initial rush of water and medicine given, Ben shifted into a quiet, watchful mode. He didn't hover, but his presence was constant. Alex drifted in and out of sleep, his fever making his dreams strange and fleeting. Each time he surfaced, he would feel the gentle touch of Ben's hand on his forehead, checking his temperature, or hear the soft rustle of Ben moving around the room, tidying up small things Alex hadn't even noticed. Ben went to the kitchen again and came back with a small basin of cool water and a clean washcloth. He carefully wrung out the cloth until it was just damp, then gently placed it on Alex's forehead. The coolness felt like a small miracle, chasing away some of the burning heat that had settled in his head. Alex sighed, a sound of pure relief. "That better?" Ben murmured, his voice low and soothing. Alex hummed in response, too tired to form words. Ben stayed by the bed, replacing the cloth every few minutes as it warmed from Alex's fever. It was a simple act, but it spoke volumes. Alex could feel the quiet care in every movement, the way Ben's fingers brushed his hair back just a little when he adjusted the cloth, the soft padding of his footsteps as he went to refresh the water. Hours passed in this rhythm. Ben would periodically offer more water, holding the glass steadily as Alex took small, slow sips. He didn't push, didn't make Alex feel rushed or pressured. He just offered, patiently waiting for Alex to manage. Sometimes he would gently wipe the sweat from Alex's temples and neck with a fresh cloth, the coolness a welcome respite from the oppressive heat that clung to him. Alex found himself relying on these small gestures. He felt too weak to even ask for anything, but Ben seemed to anticipate his needs before he even knew them himself. When the nausea returned, Ben was there with a small bowl, placing it within easy reach without a word, just a comforting hand on his shoulder. It was a silent conversation of care, a testament to a friendship that ran deeper than casual hangouts or shared jokes. At one point, Alex opened his eyes to find Ben sitting in the armchair, reading a book, his expression calm and focused. He looked up, catching Alex's gaze, and offered a soft, reassuring smile. "Just resting," he said, as if sensing Alex's question. "You need anything?" Alex shook his head, feeling a warmth spread through his chest that had nothing to do with the fever. He closed his eyes again, trusting Ben completely. The room grew dim as evening settled in, and Ben switched on a small lamp, casting a warm, soft glow. He made a light broth in the kitchen, and though Alex could only manage a few spoonfuls, the effort was appreciated. Ben even fluffed his pillows, making sure he was as comfortable as possible. Each act was tender, precise, and utterly selfless. It wasn't just caretaking. It was an intimate act of devotion, unspoken but deeply felt by Alex, even in his fever-addled state. The world outside Alex's bedroom had faded away. There was only the quiet, steady presence of Ben, a beacon in his sickness. As the night deepened, the soft glow of the lamp became the only light in the room, casting long, dancing shadows. Alex's fever hadn't completely broken, but the constant attention from Ben had made it more bearable. He was still hot, still aching, but a fragile sense of calm had settled over him, knowing he wasn't facing this sickness alone. Ben moved with a quiet grace, his steps almost silent on the carpet. Every hour or so, he would lean over Alex, his face close, his hand gently resting on Alex's forehead. His touch was feather-light, a comforting presence against Alex's burning skin. He wasn't just checking. He was connecting, a silent inquiry into Alex's well-being. Alex would often just hum in response, or sometimes, if he had the strength, open his eyes for a moment to meet Ben's worried gaze before drifting back to sleep. When Alex woke with a start, drenched in sweat, a cold shiver ran through him despite the heat of his body. He felt clammy and uncomfortable. Before he could even think to ask for help, Ben was there. Ben had seemed to sense his distress, or perhaps he just always had an eye on him. "You're really sweating, Alex," Ben murmured, his voice gentle. He reached for a fresh, dry cloth he'd kept nearby and carefully began to wipe Alex's face. He started at the temples, moving down to his cheeks, then around his jawline. His touch was incredibly tender, almost reverent, as if Alex were a delicate piece of art. He wiped away the dampness from Alex's neck, pushing back stray strands of hair that clung to his skin. Alex lay still, letting Ben tend to him. The cool, dry cloth felt amazing against his feverish skin, a small luxury in his discomfort. He could feel the warmth of Ben's fingers through the cloth, a reassuring heat that grounded him. There was no awkwardness, no hesitation in Ben's movements. It was pure, unadulterated care, given without question or expectation. "There you go," Ben whispered, once Alex's face was dry. He then changed the damp cloth on Alex's forehead for a freshly cooled one from the basin. "Hopefully, that sweat means the fever is breaking a little." He paused, his gaze soft as he looked at Alex. "Just try to relax. I'm right here." Alex's eyes fluttered open. He looked at Ben, really looked at him, and saw a depth of kindness and concern that went beyond ordinary friendship. It was in the soft lines around Ben's eyes, the slight downturn of his mouth, the focused intensity of his gaze. He wasn't just performing duties. He was truly invested in Alex's comfort and recovery. It was a profound act of care, stripped of any pretense, just one human being tending to another in their greatest moment of need. Alex felt a surge of emotion, a mix of gratitude and something else he couldn't quite name, too weak and muddled to understand it fully. He simply closed his eyes again, letting the feeling wash over him, safe in Ben's gentle hands. The late hours of the night brought a quiet stillness to the apartment, broken only by Alex's soft, uneven breathing. Ben sat beside the bed, watching Alex sleep, the book he'd been reading forgotten on his lap. Alex was stirring more frequently now, his movements restless, his brow still furrowed with the effort of fighting the fever. Ben reached out, his fingers brushing Alex's cheek, checking the heat again. It felt a little less intense, but still too high. He rose to re-wet the cloth in the basin, moving with his usual quiet efficiency. As he returned to the bedside, he saw Alex's eyes flutter open, unfocused and glassy. Alex mumbled something indistinct, a sound that was more groan than word. He was clearly still deep in the throes of the flu, his mind clouded by the illness. Ben looked at him, his heart aching with a familiar pang of concern. Alex was barely aware of his surroundings, lost in the fever's haze. Ben gently lifted the warm cloth from Alex's forehead. As he did, his gaze lingered on Alex's face, tracing the curve of his brow, the slight stubble on his jaw. Alex's eyes closed again, a sigh escaping his lips. Ben believed Alex was too far gone in his sickness to truly register anything, too delirious to understand or remember a conversation. This belief loosened something inside Ben, a dam holding back unspoken thoughts and feelings. He dipped the cloth into the cool water, squeezed it out, and then carefully, tenderly, placed it back on Alex's forehead. As his fingers lingered, adjusting the cloth just so, he started to speak, his voice a soft, almost imperceptible murmur, meant only for the quiet room, and perhaps for himself. "You really scare me today, you know that?" Ben began, his voice barely a whisper, a stark contrast to the usual easygoing tone he used with Alex. He smoothed Alex's hair back from his forehead, his touch as light as a feather. "When you didn't answer, and then when I finally heard your voice on the phone, it was so weak. I just felt this cold dread." He paused, taking a shallow breath. I thought something really bad had happened." He continued to adjust the cloth, his movements slow and deliberate, his eyes fixed on Alex's face. Alex remained still, his breathing steady but shallow, seemingly lost in sleep. Ben took this as confirmation that his words were falling on deaf ears, that he was truly alone with his thoughts. "I don't know what I'd do if something happened to you," Ben confessed, the words tasting strange and raw on his tongue. He swallowed hard, a lump forming in his throat. "It's funny, isn't it? How you don't realize how much you rely on someone until they're like this." He shook his head slightly, a small, sad smile playing on his lips. You're always there. Always. And the thought of you not being there." His voice trailed off, thick with unacknowledged emotion. He reached out and gently brushed his thumb over Alex's cheek, a gesture so intimate, so unguarded, that he would never have dared it if he thought Alex was truly listening. Ben's voice, a low rumble in the quiet room, continued, his gaze still fixed on Alex's flushed face. He smoothed the cool cloth on Alex's forehead once more, his touch lingering. The silence of the night seemed to absorb his words, making them feel like a secret shared only with the shadows. "I really was scared, Alex," Ben murmured, the admission tinged with a vulnerability Alex had rarely, if ever, heard from him. "More scared than I should have been for just a friend getting the flu." He chuckled a humorless sound and ran a hand through his own hair, ruffling it slightly. "When you didn't pick up after that messed up call, I imagined all sorts of things. Stupid things, maybe, but they felt real. Like you collapsed, or something worse." He shifted in the chair, a restless energy building inside him despite the late hour. "I was halfway to your place before I even realized I was coming. Just reacting. My heart was pounding like I'd just run a sprint." Ben leaned forward slightly, his elbows resting on his knees, his hands clasped together. "It wasn't just a worry, you know? It was this deep, cold terror, like a punch to the gut." He remembered the frantic rush to Alex's door, the key fumbling in his hand, his breath catching in his throat when he first saw Alex, so pale and still. The relief that had flooded him then was immense, almost overwhelming, quickly followed by a fierce protectiveness. He hadn't just worried. He had been genuinely afraid of losing Alex. It felt like the world just stopped for a minute. Ben continued, his voice softer now, almost wistful. "Everything else worked, my own plans had all just vanished. All I could think about was getting here, making sure you were okay." He reached out again, gently adjusting the blanket tucked around Alex's shoulders. "And when I saw you, you looked so fragile, so helpless. I just wanted to wrap you up and make it all go away." He swallowed, the confession hanging in the air, unheard by Alex, but deeply felt by Ben. "I don't usually get like that. You know me, I'm pretty level-headed. But this was different." He closed his eyes for a moment, picturing Alex's weak smile earlier, the way he'd leaned into Ben's arm for support. It just brought home how much I actually care. More than I let myself think about, probably. Ben opened his eyes, a somber realization settling over him. It wasn't just a friend getting sick. It was you. He emphasized the word, making it clear that Alex was special, unique. And that scared me, Alex. It really, truly scared me. Knowing that someone could affect me that much, that your well-being could hit me that hard. He sighed, a heavy, heartfelt sound. "Yeah, I was terrified. And I still am, a little bit, just watching you like this." He reached out, his fingers lightly touching Alex's hand, a silent promise of his unwavering vigilance. Ben's fingers still rested gently on Alex's hand, a silent anchor in the dim room. The confession of his fear had opened a door, and now other, equally potent feelings spilled out, soft and unbidden, into the quiet space. He watched Alex's chest rise and fall with each breath, a fragile rhythm that made Ben's own heart ache. "It's more than just caring, you know," Ben whispered, his voice hoarse with emotion. He leaned closer, as if to ensure his words reached Alex, even if Alex's conscious mind couldn't grasp them. "I don't think I ever realized how much I depend on you. Not in a needy way, but you're just woven into everything." He thought about their daily routines, the easy banter, the shared silences. Alex was the one he called first with good news, the one he vented to after a bad day at work. Alex was the steady, grounding presence in his often chaotic life. He was the sounding board, the confidant, the unwavering support. Ben hadn't truly noticed the sheer breadth of Alex's importance until the thought of losing it, even temporarily, had brought him to his knees. "You're my sounding board, Alex. My go-to for everything. Even the dumb stuff," Ben continued, a small, wry smile touching his lips. "Who else would I call at 2 in the morning when I can't figure out that weird noise my car is making? Who else listens to me complain about my boss for an hour without getting bored?" He paused, a genuine warmth filling his chest, despite the somber setting. "No one, that's who. Only you." He remembered countless evenings spent on Alex's couch, talking for hours about nothing and everything. Alex's calm advice, his thoughtful questions, his unwavering belief in Ben. These were things Ben had taken for granted, like the air he breathed. Now, seeing Alex so vulnerable, it hit him with the force of a tidal wave how much those things meant. "You're just my person, Alex," Ben said, the words feeling weighty and true. He cleared his throat, a slight catch in his voice. "I don't know if that makes sense, but you just get me. You see things I don't, you challenge me when I need it, and you always have my back." He squeezed Alex's hand ever so lightly. "And I don't know what I'd do without that. Without you." The confession hung in the air, a testament to years of unspoken connection. It wasn't just friendship. It was a foundational pillar of Ben's life. Alex wasn't just a friend. He was an essential part of Ben's world, a constant he relied on more than he had ever consciously admitted. The thought of that pillar crumbling, even temporarily, had shaken Ben to his core. He hadn't just worried about Alex's health. He had worried about the gaping hole Alex's absence would leave in his own life. It was a selfish thought, perhaps, but a deeply honest one. And in the quiet intimacy of the sick room, Ben felt safe enough to finally voice it. The quiet confessions flowed from Ben, each word a hesitant step deeper into his own heart. He smoothed the cool cloth on Alex's forehead, his touch becoming almost a caress, devoid of any self-consciousness in the perceived privacy of Alex's delirium. The flickering lamp cast long shadows that seemed to listen, silently absorbing his raw honesty. "And it's not just dependence," Ben continued, his voice barely audible, a new tremor in it. He took a deep, shaky breath, as if bracing himself for what he was about to say. "It's more. It's deeper than friendship, Alex." The words felt strange on his tongue, alien and yet profoundly true. He hadn't ever voiced them before, not even to himself, in full clarity. It was a realization that had been simmering beneath the surface, brought to a rolling boil by the intensity of his fear and the vulnerability of the moment. He looked at Alex, so still and pale, and a wave of tenderness washed over him, unlike any he'd ever felt for a friend. It was a warmth that settled in his chest, a longing to protect, to cherish, to simply be close. This wasn't the easygoing camaraderie he shared with his other friends. This was different. This was more. "I don't know when it happened, exactly," Ben mused, his brow furrowed in thought, trying to pinpoint the shift. "Maybe it's always been there, just hidden, underneath all the jokes and the hanging out." He remembered small moments, a lingering gaze, a shared laugh that felt particularly meaningful, The comfort of Alex's arm brushed against his own. They had always felt significant, but he had always dismissed them, filed them away under close friends. But seeing you like this, so helpless, and feeling that panic, that genuine terror, it just ripped everything open, he admitted, his voice cracking slightly. It made me realize that what I feel for you isn't just the kind of love you have for a buddy. It's different. It's stronger. It's something else entirely. He couldn't quite name it, didn't dare to. The implications were too vast, too overwhelming. The realization hit him with the force of a physical blow, even as he spoke the words. He was straight. Alex was gay. This was not supposed to happen. This was not the narrative he had carefully constructed for his life. But his heart in this dark, quiet room was telling him a different story. It surprises me, Ben confessed, a wry, self-deprecating smile on his face. It really does. I'm sitting here, watching you sleep, and all I can think about is how much I want you to be okay, how much I want to keep you safe, how much I just want you. He squeezed Alex's hand again, a little tighter this time, a silent plea for Alex to somehow feel his presence, his unspoken depth of feeling. This isn't just friendship, Alex. It's not. And that's a lot to take in. He swallowed, the truth of his words a bitter, beautiful ache in his chest. Ben's hand, still resting on Alex's, trembled slightly. The admission of deeper feelings had unleashed a torrent of new anxieties, a fear that was far more complex than the simple terror of Alex's illness. This was a fear for his own future, for the carefully constructed world he inhabited. And that scares me. Alex, Ben whispered, his voice barely a breath. He pulled his hand back, resting it on his own knee, as if the contact had become too potent, too revealing. He stared at his clasped hands, unable to meet Alex's unconscious gaze, even though he knew Alex wasn't truly seeing him. It really, truly scares me. Because, what does that even mean? He was a straight man. He had always been a straight man. His life had followed a predictable path. Work, friends, maybe a girlfriend someday. Alex was his best friend, his gay best friend. This was the comfortable, defined box their relationship had always resided in. Now, Ben felt like he was standing on the edge of a cliff, looking down into an abyss of uncertainty. I've never felt this way about anyone before, he confessed, the words raw with confusion. Not even with, past girlfriends. This intensity, this constant pull. He shook his head slowly, trying to process the enormity of his own revelation. It's like a part of me I didn't even know existed just woke up, and it's screaming your name. The thought of what these feelings implied was dizzying. What would happen if Alex knew? What would happen to their friendship, the bedrock of his stability? The idea of losing Alex as a friend, even as he was realizing he wanted more, was a fresh, agonizing fear. It was a tangled knot of desire and terror, hope and dread. I don't know what to do with this, Alex, he admitted, his voice thick with unspoken worry. It's not how things are supposed to be. I'm not. I'm supposed to be straight. You're gay. It's complicated and terrifying. He rubbed his temples, a headache starting to form behind his eyes, a physical manifestation of his internal turmoil. He imagined telling anyone about this, the judgment, the confusion, the sheer awkwardness of it all. He had always been so sure of himself, so clear about his identity. Now, everything felt fluid, uncertain, unsettling. The quiet room, once a sanctuary for his confessions, now felt like a cage, trapping him with these new, frightening truths. I'm scared of what this means for us, Ben whispered, the most vulnerable admission yet. And I'm scared of what it means for me, for who I am, or who I thought I was. He looked at Alex again, a profound ache in his chest. I don't want to mess things up. Our friendship, it's too important. But I don't know how to go back to just friendship now that I know this. He sighed, a long, weary sound, the weight of his unacknowledged feelings pressing down on him. The night stretched out, long and silent, filled with Ben's newfound fear. Despite the turmoil of his unspoken confessions and the raw fear that now mingled with his concern, Ben did not falter in his care. His hands, though perhaps a little less steady than before, remained gentle. His eyes, though shadowed with his own internal struggle, were still focused solely on Alex's comfort. The words he had just spoken, the raw truths he had laid bare, infused every subsequent action with a poignant weight, making each gentle touch and quiet gesture a silent echo of his profound feelings. He continued to sit by Alex's bedside, a vigilant sentinel in the dim light. When Alex stirred and mumbled, Ben was immediately attentive, offering sips of water from the glass that never seemed to leave his side. He held Alex's head gently as he drank, his thumb brushing Alex's cheekbone, a fleeting, almost unconscious caress. The intimacy of these acts was undeniable, a physical manifestation of the emotional depth he had just confessed. Every hour, he would rise, quietly refresh the cool cloth, and carefully place it back on Alex's forehead. His movements were precise, tender. He'd pause, his gaze soft, watching Alex's face for any sign of discomfort or improvement. He didn't speak more words of confession, but his continued, unwavering presence, his tireless care, spoke volumes. It was as if his hands were now articulating the feelings his voice had just barely managed to whisper. When Alex coughed, a dry, painful rattle in his chest, Ben was there with a soothing word, a reassuring pat on the shoulder. He adjusted Alex's pillows, trying to find a more comfortable position, his strong arms supporting Alex's weak body with an effortless grace. There was a quiet strength in Ben's care, a resolute determination that transcended the simple duty of a friend. It was the devotion of someone whose heart was deeply, undeniably invested. As the pre-dawn light began to seep through the curtains, painting the room in soft grays and pale blues, Ben still sat by the bed. He looked tired, his own eyes heavy, but his attention never wavered from Alex. He reached for Alex's wrist, his fingers finding the pulse point, a subtle check of his friend's vital signs. Then, he gently pressed the back of his hand against Alex's forehead. This time it felt cooler. The fever was finally starting to break. A small, weary smile touched Ben's lips, a mix of relief and lingering exhaustion. He carefully pulled the blanket higher, tucking it snugly around Alex. His actions were a silent promise, a vow of unwavering presence. The pure, selfless nature of his care, given throughout the long, dark hours, stood as a testament to the truth of his earlier, whispered confessions. His feelings were not just words. They were woven into every gentle touch, every watchful glance, every silent act of devotion. As the first faint light of dawn painted the bedroom windows in soft, pearly hues, the rhythm of the night slowly shifted. Alex's breathing became deeper, more even, a gentle hum of sleep rather than the labored gasps of earlier. The restless tossing had ceased, replaced by a peaceful stillness. The cool cloth on his forehead now stayed cool longer, no longer quickly warmed by a raging fever. Ben, still seated in the armchair, watched these small, precious signs of improvement with a profound sense of relief. The silence in the room was no longer heavy with Alex's suffering or Ben's unspoken fears. Instead, it was a quiet, comfortable space, filled with the echoes of shared vulnerability and unwavering care. Ben had spent the entire night in this vigil, his presence a constant, reassuring anchor. He had kept the small lamp burning, a soft beacon against the darkness, and now watched it grow pale against the growing morning light. He carefully rose from the armchair, his joints stiff from hours of sitting, and walked to the bed. He gently placed the back of his hand against Alex's cheek. It was warm, but no longer burning hot. A soft, satisfied sigh escaped his lips. Alex was going to be okay. He tidied the small basin and cloths, placing them on the nightstand. He moved around the room with the same quiet grace he had shown all night, careful not to disturb Alex's much-needed sleep. He straightened the blankets, ensuring Alex was cozy and undisturbed. Each action was a testament to the deep bond between them, a silent language of care and affection that had been woven throughout the long hours of the night. The morning light fully embraced the room now, chasing away the last lingering shadows. Alex stirred, a soft groan escaping his lips as he stretched slightly. His eyes fluttered open, blinking against the gentle light. This time, they were clearer, more focused, no longer clouded by delirium. He looked around the room, then his gaze settled on Ben, who was now standing by the window, looking out. Ben turned, catching Alex's eye. A small, tired smile touched his lips. "Morning, sleepyhead," he said, his voice soft, almost normal. "How are you feeling?" Alex blinked, a faint memory of muffled words, of a comforting presence, hovering at the edge of his consciousness. He couldn't quite grasp them, but the feeling of profound care lingered. He still felt weak, but the crushing pain in his head had lessened, and the dryness in his throat was not as severe. "Better," he rasped, surprised by the clarity of his own voice. "Much better. You stayed." Ben nodded, a gentle warmth in his eyes. "Of course I stayed. Wouldn't have left you like that." He walked back to the bedside, his movements easy and relaxed now that the immediate crisis seemed to have passed. He reached out and gently brushed Alex's hair from his forehead, a familiar, comforting gesture. "Got you some water here, and the fever seems to have broken." Alex looked at Ben, a profound sense of gratitude washing over him. He might not remember the exact words Ben had spoken in his delirium, but the overwhelming feeling of being cared for, of being safe, was crystal clear. The long night, filled with quiet acts of devotion and unspoken truths, had solidified something powerful between them. It was a connection that went beyond the ordinary, a bond forged in vulnerability and tender, selfless care. The morning brought not just a new day, but a quiet understanding of a love that ran deeper than either of them had fully acknowledged.